ready to change your life?
Have you ever wondered what's holding you back from the life you truly want? Is it fear of failure? The judging eyes of others? Or maybe you just don't know where to start? Picture this: a kid who hated school, who hit rock bottom at 30 with $500,000 in debt, moving back in with his parents, and then from that mess he built an entertainment empire, creating names like One Direction and reshaping music forever. That's Simon Cowell. Not a born genius, not a lucky guy, but someone who dared to act when the world turned its back. This isn't just his story. It's yours. It's about what you could become if you step out of your comfort zone. In a document thousands of words long about Simon Cowell's journey, from sorting mail at EMI to launching global stars, I found not just triumphs, but dark lows, ginger, his days of losing everything, nights questioning what he had left to live for. So what kept him going? Secrets I'll share with you across the next 10 parts. Lessons not just for him, but for all of us. This isn't about a distant star. It's a mirror showing how you can take control of your life, starting today. Science backs this up. A Harvard study says 80% of success comes from mindset and action, not raw talent. Simon proves it. He couldn't read music, didn't know how to make a record, but he had unshakable belief and patience to turn dreams into reality. You don't need to be him. You can learn from him right now. Get ready, because I'm taking you on a ride through Simon's deepest secrets, paired with top research from places like the U.S. National Library. Each of the 10 parts is a door, opening, not just to understand, but to act. You'll see yourself in his failures, his wins, and most importantly, your own endless potential. Are you ready? Let's kick off with the first question. What really gets you up each morning? Part 1. Finding your deepest drive. What do you live for? Imagine waking up every morning with something pulling you out of bed. Not coffee or an alarm, but a spark inside that makes you want to jump into the day. Simon Cowell had that spark. I always wanted a life that felt exciting and fun, he said. As a kid, he hated school so much he thought, if these are the best days of my life, I'd rather not have them. So what kept him going when everything felt boring and pointless? It was a fire deep inside, a need to create something all his own, to break free from the dullness. Science has a name for this: intrinsic motivation. It's not about money or applause. It's about what lights you up from within. A study from Stanford University found that people who live with a clear purpose are 15% more likely to live longer than those who don't. So what about you? What makes your heart beat a little faster? Simon started small, washing cars and mowing lawns around his neighborhood to earn pocket money. He didn't love scrubbing tires or pushing a mower. He did it because it was his first taste of freedom. Freedom to make his own cash, to call his own shots. Here's a question. If tomorrow you woke up with no limits, no bills to pay, no responsibilities, what would you do with your day? Simon found his answer in music, even though he couldn't play a single note. He loved the thrill of buying a new record, sitting in his room and listening to every track, dreaming of the day he'd make something like that. That was his drive. Not fame or fortune, but pure, simple joy. What's yours? Is it painting, starting a business, or maybe just making someone's day a little brighter? Finding that drive isn't always easy. When Simon worked in the mailroom at EMI Music Publishing, he made just £18 a week, peanuts compared to his brother, who was raking it in as a real estate agent and laughing at him. But Simon didn't care. He showed up on time, asked questions, and soaked up everything he could about the music world. He wasn't there for the paycheck. He was there because he knew it was his path. Can you ignore the doubters and chase? What sets your soul on fire? Real example. Picture this. Simon meets Sunita at a nightclub. He's got no money, no clue how to produce a song, but he hears her voice and thinks, this could be huge. He had a gut feeling she'd be a star, so he teamed up with a producer who'd never had a hit and made So Macho. It took years of hustle, flops, setbacks, begging for cash, but he got it into the charts. What drove him? Not the spotlight. It was the rush of bringing his vision to life. He didn't stop until he heard it play like he'd imagined. As a fan buying a record, that's the power of drive. It pushes you past the no's and the hard days. Science backs this up too. A study from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology says people with strong internal motivation are 40% more likely to stick with tough goals than those chasing external rewards like money. Simon didn't have a fancy degree or rich parents. He had a dream and a stubborn streak. When he was a kid, his parents made him earn his vacation money. If we pay for the trip, you earn your spending cash, they said. So at 7 or 8, he'd knock on doors, offering to wash cars or cut grass. 10 pounds for a car wash felt like winning the lottery, he said. It wasn't the cash, it was the feeling of doing it himself. But here's the catch, you've got to dig deep to find it. Simon didn't wake up one day knowing music was his thing. He discovered it through little moments like saving up for a single or losing himself in an album. You might not know your drive yet, and that's okay. The trick is asking, what makes you feel alive? Maybe it's cooking, teaching, fixing things. Something that pulls you in without you even noticing. Simon didn't need to be good at music. He just loved it enough to start. Can you find something you love enough to chase even if you're not great at it yet? Personal story. I used to drift through jobs, not sure what I wanted. Then I read about Simon and how he found his spark in records. I started writing. Not because I was good, but because it felt right. One page turned into a blog, and now it's my passion. What's your record? That thing you could lose yourself in? Take action now. 1. Grab a piece of paper and jot down 3 things that excite you when you think about them. Don't overthink it. Just be real. Maybe it's drawing, running, or helping a friend. Pick one and ask yourself, what small thing can I do today to get closer? It could be watching a tutorial, making a quick call, or even daydreaming about it for 5 minutes. Stick that paper somewhere you'll see it every day. On your mirror, your desk, anywhere. It's a nudge to keep living for what matters to you. Drive is your starting line, but what happens when life throws you a curveball? Simon went broke at 30, lost it all, and still came back swinging. How'd he do it? The next part's got the answer. You won't believe it. Part 2. Failure is a great teacher. Are you brave enough to face it? Have you ever crashed so hard you thought it was all over? Simon Cowell knows that feeling. Right? 30, he lost everything. His company went bust, he owed the bank $500,000, and he had to move back in with his parents. No house, no Porsche, nothing. If you bankrupt me, I don't care, he told the bank. I've got nothing left to lose. But here's the thing. He didn't quit. He turned that mess into a stepping stone. A study from Harvard says people who treat failure like a lesson, not a dead end, are twice as likely to succeed compared to those who walk away. Simon's proof of that. From the ruins of Fanfare Records, he clawed his way back, signed with BMG, and churned out hits that sold millions. Think about your last stumble. A project that tanked, a job you didn't get, or just a day that went sideways. What did you do after? Simon could have stayed down, but he didn't. He packed up, moved home, and refused to let failure define him. He found another bank, pitched his crazy ideas, and got back on his feet. It's a life lesson, Simon, his mom and dad told him, and you'll get through it. They were right. He did. Can you face your own flops and keep going? Real example, when Fanfare Records fell apart, Simon was left with $5 in his pocket. He stood at a London street corner, wondering if it'd even cover a cab ride back to his parents' place. Most people would have given up right there, but not him. He tracked down a lawyer named Tony Russell, a guy who believed in him even when Simon couldn't pay up front. Tony said, "This is the best thing that's happened to you," and helped him land a deal with BMG. Failure wasn't the end for Simon. It was raw data he used to tweak his next move. That deal turned his life around. Science backs this up big time. A study in the Journal of Applied Psychology found that people who reflect on their failures, instead of hiding from them, boost their grit by 40%. Simon didn't run from his $500,000 debt or the embarrassment of moving home. He stared it down. He sat with the bank, hashed out a plan, and cut the debt in half with help from a new lender who took a chance on him. "I sold myself," he said, "and it worked." He didn't just survive, he learned. What's the last failure you ran from? Could you turn around and look it in the eye? Failure isn't pretty. It's messy, it hurts, and it humbles you. When Simon's company crashed, he'd splurged on a house, a Porsche, and a gold credit card he didn't understand. The bank came knocking and he had to sell it all. Even then, he still owed money. Most would have crumbled, but Simon shrugged it off. "I'd rather start over than stay stuck," he said. His parents didn't judge. They welcomed him, back saying, "You'll figure it out." That support, plus his refusal to quit, pulled him through. Have you got someone, or just yourself, to lean on when things fall apart? Personal story. I bombed a big presentation once. Froze up, forgot my lines, the works. I wanted to hide forever. But reading about Simon losing it all and bouncing back made me rethink it. I went over what went wrong, practiced more, and nailed the next one. Failure didn't kill me, it taught me. What's your presentation rose a flop you could learn from? Here's the deal. Failure's only a teacher if you let it be. Simon didn't wallow, he acted. He took that $5 cab ride home, regrouped, and started pitching again. A study from the University of Pennsylvania says people who act after failing, even small steps, are 30% more likely to hit their goals later. Simon didn't wait for a miracle. He made one. When he pitched to BMG, he said, "My first record sold 1 million copies. This crash wasn't my fault." They bought it, gave him a year to prove himself, and he delivered. Failure didn't break him, it built him. Can it build you? Real example. Again, after losing everything, Simon didn't just sit there. He found Tony Russell, a lawyer he'd met when George Michael sued him over a remix. Tony saw past the broke guy in front of him and said, "You've got something, Simon." That belief, plus Simon's hustle, got him back in the game. He didn't let failure write his story. He did. Failure's tough, but it's not final. Simon went from $5 to a multi-million-dollar comeback because he faced it head on. You don't have to love failing. Just don't fear it. What's one flop you're scared to revisit? Maybe it's got a lesson waiting for you. Take action now. 1. Grab a pen and write down a failure you've had lately. A few lines. Nothing fancy. Maybe a missed deadline or a fight you regret. List 3 things it taught you, like, "I need to plan better," or "I should have asked for help." Pick one lesson and do something with it today. Send an email, make a call, or decide something small. Don't wait. Start now. Failure teaches you how to stand up, but how do you keep standing when no one believes in you? Simon's got a trick for that in the next part. You won't want to skip it. Part 3. Believing in yourself. When no one else does. How do you stand tall? Have you ever had a dream so big, so out there, that people laughed in your face? Simon, Cowell knows that feeling. When he pitched making an album with WWF wrestlers, big sweaty guys in tights, his boss literally dropped to her knees begging, "Simon, please don't do this, it's going to be a disaster." Everyone thought he'd lost it, but Simon didn't back down. He trusted his gut, and that album? It sold millions, hitting #1 in 28 countries. "I'd rather be laughed at for being different than play it safe," he said. A study from the Journal of Social Psychology backs him up. Believing in yourself beats out IQ or raw talent when it comes to predicting success. What about you? Ever had an idea shot down before you could even explain it? Simon got tossed out of EMI's top boss's office when he begged for a better job. Just a kid in the mailroom with no clout. People called him nuts for signing Robson and Jerome, 2 actors no one took seriously as singers. But he didn't care. He kept knocking on doors, asking questions, pushing forward until his nuts ideas turned into gold. Can you stand tall when everyone's telling you to sit down? Real example. Take Robson and Jerome. Simon saw them sing on a TV show, Soldier, Soldier, and knew they could be huge. Robson wouldn't budge, said no way, even sent legal letters to make Simon stop bugging him. But Simon didn't quit. He offered them $50,000 each to record with a catch. If you hate it, keep the money and walk. They took the deal, thinking they'd outsmart him. When they heard the final track, Robson grinned and said, "You jerk, you knew this would work." It did. They became the UK's top-selling artists for 2 years, outselling Oasis. Simon believed when no one else did, and it paid off. Here's the thing. Self-belief isn't easy when the world's against you. At EMI, Simon was a nobody. 18 pounds a week, sorting mail in a basement with 2 old guys who just wanted tea. He could have stayed quiet, but he didn't. He walked into offices, asked, "Can I get a better job?" and got laughed at or kicked out. Still, he kept going. Science says this grit matters. A Yale study found that people who stick to their beliefs during tough times have 30% lower cortisol, the stress hormone, meaning they think clearer under pressure. Simon didn't let doubters shake him. He doubled down. Can you? Personal. Story. I once pitched a wild idea at work, a project no one thought would fly. My team smirked. My boss said, "Nice try, but no." I felt dumb, but Simon's story stuck with me. He got mocked for wrestlers singing, and it worked. So I tweaked my pitch, found one believer, and pushed it through. It wasn't a million seller, but it got me a promotion. What's your wrestler album? An idea you've buried because people didn't get it. Believing in yourself isn't just stubbornness, it's power. When Simon started Fanfare Records at 24, he had no clue how to run a label. It flopped, left him broke, but he didn't stop believing he could make music work. He pitched to BMG later with nothing but his track record and guts. "My first record sold 1 million copies," he said, and they gave him a shot. That belief rebuilt his life. A study from the University of California says self-confidence boosts decision-making by 25%. Even when odds are stacked against you, Simon bet on himself and won. Real example. Again, back to the WWF album. Simon didn't just believe it'd work, he made it fun. He flew in wrestlers like The Undertaker and Hulk Hogan, had them record as their characters, and laughed through the whole thing. His boss thought he'd tank the label, but Simon saw what she didn't. Fans would buy it because it was bold. He was right. Millions did. He didn't need approval. He needed faith in his own vision. Doubters are loud, but belief is louder. Simon got called every name in the book. Crazy, reckless, naive, but he shrugged it off. "I'd rather be different," he said. Science agrees. A Psychology Today report says people who ignore naysayers and trust themselves are 35% more likely to take risks that pay off. Simon risked it all, his job, his rep, and came out on top. What risk are you scared to take because people might laugh? Take action. Now. Think of an idea you've had that got shut down, a dream, a project, something you love. Write it down quick. Jot down why you believe in it, your reason, not what others think. Maybe it's, "I know it could help someone," or "It feels right." 3. Tell one person about it today, a friend, a coworker, anyone, and ask what they think. That tiny step could spark something big. Don't wait. Do it now. Belief keeps you standing, but how do you turn it into something real? The next part shows how Simon took his faith and built a legacy. You'll be blown away. Part 4. Small actions, big results. Have you started yet? Ever feel like your dreams are too huge, too far off to even know where to kick things off? Simon Cowell felt that once. Stuck in EMI's mailroom making 18 pounds a week, he didn't know the first thing about producing a song, couldn't even read music. But he didn't wait for the perfect moment to drop from the sky. He started small, delivering mail, asking questions, learning from the people around him. Those tiny steps led him to So Macho, a hit that flopped twice before he made it big. "I didn't know how to make a record," he said, "but I just did it." Are you ready to start even if you don't feel ready? Science says small moves pack a punch. A University of Pennsylvania study found that people who take consistent, bite-sized actions every day boost their performance by 37% in just 6 months. It's called the compound effect, like how a single drop of water can fill a bucket if you keep dripping. Simon got this without a textbook. When he met Sunita at the Embassy Club, he had no cash, no studio, nothing but an idea and a hunch her voice could soar. He convinced a no-name producer, scraped together $5,000 from a guy who'd given up on him, and got to work. The result? A chart-topping hit that changed his life. What small step could change yours? Do you put things off waiting for someday? Simon didn't have that luxury. He acted, knocking on doors at EMI for a better gig, hustling records when no one else would help. He didn't have big resources, just creativity and a refusal to sit still. A study from the National Institutes of Health, NIH, says finishing small tasks releases dopamine, that feel-good chemical in your brain, making you want to keep going. Simon was hooked on that feeling. In the mailroom, he'd ask someone new about the music biz every day, piecing together his future one chat at a time. He didn't see it as work. He saw it as getting closer to his dream. What's one small thing you could do today to feel that rush? Real example, getting so macho into the top 40 was a battle. First try, flop. Second try, flop again. Simon didn't throw in the towel. He got crafty. He told the warehouse to hold back orders, faking a shortage to build buzz. Then, flooded the market in 1 week. Boom, it squeaked into the charts, hit top of the pops, and exploded. He didn't have a big team or budget, just an idea and relentless action. I wanted to hear it like a fan buying a record, he said, sticking to the listener's side, not the maker's. That simple focus turned a small move into a massive win. But it's not just about the payoff, it's about how it feels. Think of the last time you finished something small. Sending that email you'd been dodging, writing a quick note, or jogging for 5 minutes. That little high, that's your brain cheering you on. Simon lived for it. When he started Fanfare, records in a dingy parking lot office, every deal he cut, even if it was just 10,000 records, felt like a victory. He didn't wait for a golden ticket, he made his own. A book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, based on Stanford research, says doing one small thing daily for 30 days builds a habit with an 80% success rate. Simon flopped twice with So Macho before nailing it. Each try was a step. Can you take one step today? Personal story. I used to stall on writing a blog, thinking I needed more research. Then I remembered Simon. No music skills, still. Made So Macho. I wrote 100 words just to start. The fear melted away and now that blog's live. What's your So Macho or something you've been putting off too long? You don't need to be perfect to begin. Simon sure wasn't. He didn't have money or know-how when he met Sunita, but he acted anyway. I don't want to know how a record's made, he told his producer. I just want to hear it, like a buyer. That gut-driven action turned a nightclub hunch into a hit. Science says starting small beats waiting. A Journal of Behavioral Science study shows people who act before they're ready are 25% more likely to reach their goals. Simon didn't wait. He jumped. What are you waiting for? Real example. Again, to make So Macho work, Simon had to hustle hard. With barely any credit, he cut deals to press 10,000 records, begging distributors to take a chance. 3 tries, 2 flops, and 1 clever trick later, it hit the charts. He didn't have a roadmap. He had action. Every small win built the big one. Take action now. 1. Pick a small goal you want. Maybe writing a post, calling a client, or learning a skill. Keep it simple. Break it into 3 tiny steps, like open my laptop, write 50 words, hit save, or pick up the phone, dial, say hi. 3, do the first step right now, not tomorrow, not later, today. Set a timer for 5 minutes if you need to. Then ask, how'd that feel? Write it down, that's your fuel to keep moving. Small actions open big doors, but how do you stick with it when the going gets tough? Simon's got a secret weapon, patience, and it's coming up next. You'll be shocked at what it can do. Part 5. Patience. Do you have what it takes to wait for success? Picture yourself standing at a locked door, the one to your biggest dream. A killer career, a life that matters, a better you. The catch? It's bolted shut and the key isn't in your hand. It's buried in time, in waiting, in days you want to quit but don't. Simon Cowell faced that door. At 12, his dad, Eric, told him, "Simon, you've got to be patient. Success might take 20 or 30 years, but if you want to be good, you have to learn and wait." Simon didn't argue. "I'm fine with that," he said, calm but firm, and he meant it. From slogging 18 months in EMI's mailroom with no promotion, to going broke at 30 with a $500,000 debt, to grinding years to make So Macho a hit, Simon didn't chase quick wins. He waited, he learned, he won. Can you hold on like that? Science calls patience a quiet superpower. Stanford's famous marshmallow test tracked kids who could wait 15 minutes for 2 marshmallows instead of grabbing one right away. Those patient kids scored 210 points higher on SATs later and were 50% more likely to hit long-term goals as adults. Simon was that kid grown up. At 24, he launched Fanfare Records in a grimy parking lot office, a former restroom, with nothing but belief and patience. When it crashed, leaving him drowning in debt, he didn't panic. He talked the bank down, found a lawyer named Tony Russell, and slowly convinced BMG to give him a shot. "I knew I'd make it," he said, and he was ready to wait to prove it. Do you give up too soon? Think of the last time you ditched something, a project that dragged, a skill you couldn't nail fast, a dream that felt too far. Simon spent almost 2 decades going from mailroom grunt to music mogul. At 17, he was a runner at Elstree Studios, hiding under desks to dodge getting fired. But he didn't quit on entertainment. When Fanfare tanked, he didn't rush for a quick fix. He moved home, cut his debt, and rebuilt step by step. "I'm okay if it takes time," he told his dad. "Can you wait for your success, or are you hooked on instant results?" Real example. When Simon formed One Direction on X Factor, he didn't rush them to the big stage. He saw potential in each guy, Harry, Liam, Louis, Niall, Zayn, and patiently put them together. "I saw them walking on a beach in Spain," he said, "and people stared like they were already stars even though no one knew them." He didn't force it. He let them find their vibe, pick songs they loved, and built them into a global sensation. The payoff? 7 straight UK #1 singles, a rare record. His patience wasn't just waiting. It was smart, steady action with a clear vision. Patience isn't sitting still. It's moving with purpose. At EMI, Simon didn't just sort mail. He bugged everyone with questions about the music biz, soaking it up, waiting for his break. "I always asked," he said, "and I was always on time." After 18 months with no raise, he didn't bolt. He stayed, knowing he was laying groundwork. With Robson and Jerome, he hounded Robson, who kept saying no, even contacting his family and friends until he got a yes, despite legal warnings. "I wouldn't stop till he agreed," Simon said. It worked. They topped the UK charts for 2 years. He waited, but he pushed. Science says you can train patience. A University of California, Berkeley study found that practicing delayed gratification, skipping instant rewards, boosts self-control by 40% and long-term success by 60%. Simon learned this early. At 7, his parents made him earn pocket money washing cars or mowing lawns. £10 for a car wash was the best feeling, he said, still grinning about it. He didn't need a big prize right away. He loved the small wins, trusting they'd add up. When he went broke at 30, he stood at a London corner with $5, wondering if it'd get him home. "I don't care if I'm bankrupt," he told the bank. But he cared about getting up, patiently. Personal story. "I quit piano after 3 months because I couldn't play a song fast enough." Simon's story hit me. Years to make So Macho work. I went back, practiced 10 minutes a day, and a year later I played Clair de Lune. What's your piano? Something you dropped too quick? Imagine starting a goal today. Learning guitar, writing a book, launching a business, knowing it might take 5 years. Would you stick it out? Simon did, even without a clear finish line. So Macho flopped twice, but he kept tweaking, waiting for the third try to stick. And it did. A Yale study says patient people have 30% less stress, thinking sharper, in chaos. Simon stayed cool when he lost it all, and it saved him. Take action now. Think of a goal you gave up on because it took too long. Learning a language, running, whatever. Write it down. Jot down one reason you still believe in it. Maybe I love how it feels, or I want it for me. Commit to one small thing every day for 7 days, 5 minutes, like learning 5 words or running a block. After a week, ask, do I want to keep going? Write how you feel. That's patience growing. Patience is quiet strength, but how does it pull you through life's biggest losses? The next part shows how Simon found meaning after heartbreak. It'll touch you deep. Part 6, Finding Meaning. After loss. Are you ready to heal? Have you ever felt like life just emptied out? Like a piece of your heart got ripped away, leaving a hole you can't fill? Simon Cowell's been there not once but twice, losing both his parents, who he called his best friends. Losing my mom was the worst thing that ever happened to me, he said, his voice catching in an interview, when his dad, Eric, died of a heart attack right as Westlife hit #1. Simon called home to share the win, only to hear the crushing news. Then, when his mom, Julie, passed, he hit a dark spiral. I'd lost everyone, he said, and all the stuff. I had money, success, that didn't mean a thing. He turned into a vampire, working till 8 a.m., hiding in the dark to fill the void. But then came a miracle. His son, Eric, was born. He saved me, Simon said, no question. Have you lost something big? Are you ready to find meaning? Again, like he did? Loss is part of life, but science says we can rise above it. A study from the National Institutes of Health, NIH, found that people who rediscover purpose after loss, through family, work, or a new passion, cut their depression risk by 60%. Simon didn't let loss define him. After his mom died, he was a wreck, eating junk, gaining weight, living like, if a bus hit me tomorrow, I wouldn't care. But when Lauren, his partner, called and said, are you sitting down? I'm pregnant. Everything shifted. Eric wasn't just a kid. He was the light that yanked Simon out of the shadows. What could be your light, even when it feels pitch black? Real example. Simon was in Germany, pitching Westlife at a big conference. When his dad passed, the crowd loved it, but when he called home, his mom's shaky voice gave it away. Don't tell Simon while he's there, someone said, but she couldn't hide it. Your dad's gone, she told him, and the flight back from Germany was the longest trip of my life, he said. He didn't cry right away. He froze, wondering what all his success meant without his dad to share it. But he didn't quit. He kept going, turning pain into fuel. And when his mom passed later, Eric gave him new purpose. I watched him see Jungle Book, Simon said, and saw a joy I'd forgotten. That's when he knew life was still worth living. Loss isn't just losing people. It's losing dreams, relationships, or parts of yourself. At 30, Simon lost it all. Fanfare Records collapsed, leaving him $500,000 in debt, and he crawled back to his parents' house. I've got nothing, he told the bank, but his mom and dad didn't pile on. It's a life lesson, Simon, they said. You'll get past it. He did, not by ignoring the hurt, but by finding new meaning. Eric brought that back. He saved me in so many ways, Simon said. What's a loss that's made you question your worth? Could something, or someone, be your Eric to pull you through? Science says loss can spark growth. A Harvard study on post-traumatic growth found that 70% of people who face big loss and actively seek meaning come out stronger, more grateful, and more driven. Simon's one of them. Before Eric, he lived like a machine, working non-stop, no weekends, no care for himself. I was miserable, he said, even with everything. After Eric, he flipped the script. He stopped the all-nighters, put family first. I wanted my mom to meet Eric, he said, and she did. She gave Eric a brown blanket he still clings to even after she was gone. That's how she's still with us, Simon believes. Do you think loss could make you better? When his dad died, Simon said, I'd trade every hit to keep him here. But he couldn't. Instead, he turned pain into action, kept building his career, not to forget, but to honor what his parents taught him: patience, kindness, belief. When his mom got dementia before passing, he stayed close and later kept her alive through Eric. I talk to them in my head, he said, asking what to do, and I know their answers. Can you keep your losses close in a way that heals? His personal story. I lost a close friend to illness, and for months I just cried. Simon's story got me. He didn't hide from pain. He found purpose. I started writing, not to escape, but to remember. Every word keeps him with me. What's your brown blanket? A memory or action to heal? Loss isn't the end. It's a call to start over. Simon faced it, found light in Eric. When Eric at 2 looked up and said, I'm thinking about Grandpa Eric and Julie, Simon felt a timeless bond. They're still here, he said, and that's how he moved on. A journal of positive psychology study says believing in a loved one's presence through memory or faith cuts stress by 45% and boosts resilience by 60%. Simon lives it. Take action. Now Flowza 1. Write down a loss you've had, a person, a chance, a dream. Keep it short, just a few lines about how it felt. List one good thing it brought. Maybe I value time more, or I'm tougher than I thought. Do one thing today to honor it. Call someone you love, jot a note, or sit quietly for 5 minutes remembering. Ask, do I feel lighter? Write it down. That's your first healing step. Meaning's a lifeline, but how do you keep your soul strong when life keeps hitting? The next part dives into Simon's therapy journey after a brutal accident. You'll learn a ton. Part 7. Caring for your soul. Have you listened to yourself enough? Ever feel like there's a locked box inside you, stuffed with emotions you're too scared to open? Sadness, stress, or just a hollow spot you can't name? Simon Cowell lived that way for years, a guy who looked like he had it all, but inside his soul was running on empty. Then came his big wake-up call, a brutal back injury in 2020 that nearly killed him. I realized I'd been bottling up so much, he said in an interview, his voice low and thoughtful. With help from a therapist named Justin, he didn't just heal his body. He patched up his soul, reshuffling his priorities, cutting stress, and living lighter. I feel great after every session, he said. Have you really listened to what's going on inside you? Or are you still running from it? Taking care of your soul isn't a luxury, it's a must. The American Psychological Association, APA, says therapy slashes depression symptoms by 75% for people under heavy pressure, while boosting resilience by 50%. Simon didn't jump into therapy early on. Before, he was a work junkie, staying up till 8 a.m. eating garbage, living like, if I die tomorrow, oh well. I wasn't happy, he said, even with all I had. But that 2020 accident, breaking his back in 3 places, signing a form to let doctors pull the plug if surgery failed, flipped a switch. After 6 hours under the knife and a metal rod in his spine, he found a new path to care for his soul. Are you brave enough to stop and look inward even if it's scary? Real example. Post-accident. Simon was a mess on the hospital bed. Pain so bad he could barely stand it once the meds wore off. He called his lawyer about his will, then tried to sell a TV show, his mind all over the place. But as he recovered, he met Justin, who he calls my friend. Justin helped him keep it simple, rethinking what mattered. I used to think everything was a big deal, Simon said, but Justin showed me I was overcomplicating it. He ditched the late nights, stopped emails after 6 p.m., and focused on time with his son, Eric. Therapy didn't just save his soul, it saved his life. Before that crash, Simon hit dark patches. When his mom, Julie, died, depression swallowed him. I felt like I was dying inside, he said, but I had to go on TV smiling like a clown. He packed on weight, lost purpose, wondering, is this it? He didn't seek help then. He buried it in work, but it didn't fix anything. I'm thinner-skinned than I let on, he admitted, especially when someone betrays me. Disloyalty cut him deep, but he rarely spoke up. Do you hide your pain like that? What's stopping you from letting it out? Science says your soul needs air. A Stanford study found that ignoring mental stress hikes heart disease risk by 40% and cuts life expectancy by 10 years. Simon was on that edge. Pre-Eric, he lived like a vampire, sleeping days, working nights, eating junk. I was hooked on that life, he said, but it wasn't joy. The accident was his breaking point. He didn't just relearn to walk. Starting with 20 steps in his garden, he learned to hear his soul. I needed someone smarter than me to help, he said about Justin. Are you ready to admit you might need a hand? Real example. Again. When Simon started therapy, he was nervous. I thought it'd be awkward, he said, but they're so good they make it easy. Justin didn't just listen, he pushed Simon to rethink. You overthink too much, Justin told him, and Simon nodded. You're right. Work used to rule him, late calls, weekend grinds. But therapy showed him family came first. I don't want Eric growing up without me around, he said. He ditched his phone, skipped Fridays, and felt freer. It's like a weight lifted, he said. Caring for your soul isn't weak, it's strong. A clinical psychology study says owning your struggles and getting help boosts confidence by 35% and crisis handling by 60%. Simon thought he was invincible, building One Direction, Westlife, endless hits without a break. But after his mom's death, he saw he wasn't. I still get depressed sometimes, he said, but therapy helps me face it. Are you pretending? You're fine when you're breaking inside. Personal story. I used to think therapy was for losers. Then work crushed me, sleep vanished, and I gave it a shot. I spilled about stress, fear of failing, and my therapist asked, what really matters to you? I realized I'd ignored my family. One session shifted me. Now evenings are for them, not my phone. What's weighing your soul down? Simon even tried couples therapy with Lauren. We'd be the best reality show, he joked, but it worked. Better talks, clearer priorities. A University of California study says couples therapy ups relationship satisfaction by 45% and cuts fights by 60%. Simon learned to let go of work, of old hurts. I used to hold it all in, he said. Now I let it out. Take action. Now is one. Write down one thing stressing you out. Work, a fight, or just feeling off. Keep it short. Ask, what would I tell a friend about this? Write your answer like a quick chat. Share it with someone, a buddy, family, or try 10 minutes of quiet, breathing deep, asking, what do I need? Jot down how it feels. That's your soul starting to breathe. A strong soul holds you up, but how do you balance it with a crazy life? The next part shows how Simon reshaped his days after Eric. You'll be surprised. Part 8. Balancing life. Are you really living? Ever feel like your life's a treadmill you can't step off? Working, worrying, rushing, but never truly living? Simon Cowell was stuck there once. Before his son Eric came along, he was a machine. Up till 8 a.m. Working, calling people at all hours, no weekends. I was a work addict, he admitted, and I wasn't happy. Then Eric changed everything. Now he skips Fridays, ignores emails after 6 p.m., and even ditched his cell phone. I'm happier without it, he said, his tone soft but sure. Are you letting work swallow your life? Or are you ready to balance it? To live for real, not just keep going? Balance isn't a bonus. It's how you stay sane and whole. A University of California, San Francisco study says cutting screen time, phones, computers, bumps life satisfaction up 40% and drops stress by 35%. Simon used to live glued to screens and deadlines. Endless calls, emails, controlling. Every detail till he burned out. I was hooked on that rush, he said, but it wasn't making me happy. Eric flipped the switch. Watching Jungle Book with his son, seeing that pure joy, Simon remembered what mattered. I felt that as a kid, he said, and I want Eric to have it. Are you making time for what counts? Or are you lost in the grind? Real example. Pre-Eric, Simon was a vampire. Sleeping days, working nights, eating junk to keep up. If a bus hit me tomorrow, I wouldn't care, he said about those dark days after losing his mom. But when Lauren called, "Are you sitting down? I'm pregnant," he woke up. I don't want Eric growing up without a dad around, he said. He quit the all-nighters, stopped emails after 6 p.m., and tossed his phone. Keeps just a car, phone he barely touches. I hate them, he said. They're as boring as a toaster. The result? He slowed down, got healthier, felt happier. I can't even recall how I lived before, he said. Balance takes choice, not chance. Simon used to think non-stop work was the only way to win. He dragged his team along till dawn, no breaks, proud of his crazy work ethic. Sorry to those I pulled with me, he chuckled, but he doesn't regret it. It built his empire. Post-Eric, though, he saw success wasn't worth wrecking himself. A Harvard study says working over 60 hours a week spikes burnout risk by 70% and cuts performance by 25% compared to balanced folks. Simon teetered on that edge, then chose different. Can you? Real example. Again, building One Direction. Simon worked like mad, picking members, songs, every detail. Post-Eric, he shifted gears. For his 2025 boy band project, he's not grinding 24/7 anymore. I want to enjoy it, he said, not just the outcome. He carves out family time, keeps work in check. 3-day weekends beat too, he grinned. That's his balance now. Hard work, full life. Science says balance heals you. An NIH study shows 7 to 8 hours of sleep and hobby time drop cortisol, the stress hormone, by 30% and lift creativity by 45%. Simon used to scrape by on 4 hours. Post-accident, he flipped. Sleep's the best medicine, he said. I'd take 10 if I could. He walks 20,000 steps daily, eats better, ditched old habits. I didn't know how weak I was before, he admitted. Are you trading your health for hustle? Personal story. I used to grind 12-hour days, no weekends, thinking that's how you make it. I was fried, grumpy, distant from my family. Simon ditching his phone hit me. I tried a day without mine. Played with my kid, cooked with my wife, laughed for the first time in months. What's your phone? Something stealing your life. Balance isn't quitting, it's working smarter. Simon still watches every Britain's Got Talent and America's Got Talent episode 3-4 times before airing, checking every second, but he doesn't overdo it. I'm sharpest when I'm not tired, he said, when I'm fit and happy. A Stanford study says rest boosts creative output by 50%. Why he skips Fridays now? It doesn't change much, he said, but I live better. Can you trim 1 day or 1 hour to live more? Real example. One more time. After his back-breaking accident, Simon didn't just tweak his schedule, he rewired his mindset. Used to leap from bed to work, now he walks, hangs with Eric, takes it easy. I don't want to kill myself doing this, he said. He's still a hit maker, just on his terms. I love what I do, he said, but I love living it too. Balance is living, not surviving. You don't need a crash or a kid to shift gears and start today. Imagine 1 hour free of work, free of screens, just for you. What would you do? Simon picked family, health, joy. What's your pick? Take action. Now, 1. Pick 1 day to ditch your phone. No emails, no social media, just 1 day. Or try 2 hours if that's easier. Spend that time on you or someone you love. Walk, read, play, or just sit still. Write how it felt after. Different? Better? Set a reminder to try again next week. That's balance taking root. Balance lets you live true, but how do you turn it into a legacy for others? The next part spills Simon's hopes for Eric and the world. It'll move you. Part 9. Building a legacy. How do you want to be remembered? Imagine a day years from now when you're gone. What will people say about you? Your kids, your friends, or even a stranger you once met? Will they remember you for something real? Simon Cowell thinks about this a lot. I want Eric to remember I did it all with no head start, he said, his voice steady with pride. From a kid who hated school with no degree or cash, to the guy who launched One Direction and shook up entertainment, Simon didn't just build a career, he built a legacy. But it's not about money or fame for him. I want to be remembered as someone kind who made something happen and treated people well, he said. How do you want to be remembered? And more importantly, what are you doing today to make that stick? Your legacy isn't what you leave when you die. It's what you create while you're here. A University of Oxford study says people who live for a bigger purpose, inspiring others, helping out, leaving something lasting, feel 30% more satisfied in old age and regret 40% less than those chasing just personal wins. Simon used to run after success, chart-topping hits, million-dollar deal. But losing his parents and having Eric flipped his view. All the stuff I thought mattered, chart positions, showcases, meant nothing when my dad died, he wrote in his book. He wants to leave more, a model of grit, kindness, and passion. Are you living to leave your mark or just racking up points? Real example. In 2025, Simon's hunting for a new boy band, not just for hits, but for a musical legacy. I want it beautiful and cinematic, he said, so their clips live online forever. He's not chasing cash. He's funding it himself. No label backing, taking the risk. If I don't do it, I'll regret it, he said. That's his legacy. Not just for him, but for Eric, young artists, and fans. Showing them success doesn't need a big start, just heart and hustle. Legacy isn't fame, it's impact. At 6, Simon asked for an autograph at the Ideal Home exhibition and got a flat no. It crushed me, he said, and I swore I'd never say no to anyone. He's kept that promise. Mid-dinner or swamped, he'll stop for a photo or signature. It's a compliment, he said, and I know how rejection stings. A University of Michigan study says leaving a legacy through kindness boosts your happiness by 45% and sense of purpose by 50%. Simon didn't just make stars. He treated everyone from mailroom guys to megastars with respect. Are you treating people the way you want to be remembered? Real example. Again, signing Westlife. Simon didn't just aim for success. He wanted proof of his dad's advice. Be patient, do it well. He stuck with Louis Walsh after a flop first try, tweaked the lineup, and made them a UK giant, with 7 straight number ones. My dad said they'd be big, he said, and I wanted him proud. His legacy isn't just music. It's honoring his parents through every move, every win. He wants Eric to see that you don't need a leg up, you need will. Science says legacy gives life depth. A Harvard study on legacy psychology found that focusing on value for others, not just stacking wins, lowers cortisol by 35% and ups healthy living by 20%. Simon chased glory once, working himself ragged, but Eric changed that. Family's number one, he said. Everything else is second. He doesn't just want Eric to recall a dad. He wants him to learn passion, kindness, grit. Do you think about how your kids, friends, or community will see you? Personal story. I thought legacy was cash or fame till my grandma passed. She left no riches, just kindness everyone remembered. It hit me, so I started writing to inspire, not just earn. What's your grandma? A person or value shaping your legacy. Legacy can be small but deep. Simon recalls his mom saying at 4, "Manners maketh the man," and he passed it to Eric. At 2, Eric piped up, "Manners maketh the man, Daddy," and Simon beamed, "You got it." He's not just leaving music, he's leaving values. A Journal of Social Psychology study says passing personal values down generations boosts connection by 60% and cuts loneliness by 40%. Simon doesn't want Eric chasing bucks. He wants him chasing dreams. Do what you love, he said, and do it great. What do you want to pass on? Take action. Now, write one value you'd want people to remember you by. Kindness, creativity, patience, whatever fits. Just a word or two. Do one thing today to show it. Help someone, start something, say thanks. Like if it's kindness, text a friend a boost. Ask, if I keep this up, what's my legacy? Write your answer. It's your rough draft for the future. Legacy's a big goal, but how do you inspire others to live it? The next part reveals how Simon lights that fire in the next generation. You'll be pumped. Part 10. Inspiring others. Who will you be for someone else? Picture yourself standing in front of a crowd. Not to show off, but to spark something in them. To make them believe they can do big things too. Simon Cowell's done that thousands of times, not just on X Factor or Britain's Got Talent, but through how he lives and lifts others up. Enjoy it, he told One Direction when they started, because in 10 years you'll look back and say, we had a blast. He didn't just create stars, he inspired them to shine on their own, to become their best selves. Who can you be for someone else? A guide, a friend, or just a flicker of hope on a rough day? Are you ready to inspire? Inspiring isn't about preaching, it's about living as an example. A University of Michigan study says people who inspire through their actions, not just talk, boost their own happiness by 45% and help others feel 60% more purpose. Simon never calls himself an inspirer, he just does what he believes. When he threw 5 strangers together to make One Direction, he said, "You'll be famous, but don't whine about paparazzi or long hours. It's part of the dream." He didn't sugarcoat it, he made it real. They listened, became a global sensation. Can you live in a way that makes someone think, I want that too? Real example, when Simon first saw One Direction on a Spanish beach, he spotted magic. People stared like they were already stars even though no one knew them, he said. He didn't box them in, he set them free. No stylist, you've got taste, he said, and don't dance, you can't. He inspired by trusting them. 7 UK #1 singles later, millions of fans, and solo careers followed. Harry Styles turned into a megastar and Simon's proud. I gave him a launch pad, but he flew. Can you be a launch pad for someone? Inspiration means believing in others, even when they don't. With Westlife, Simon stuck by Louis Walsh after a dud first try. I flew to Dublin and hated them, he laughed, but I gave Lewis another shot. He tweaked the group, picked their songs, and turned them into a UK powerhouse. I wanted them to win, he said, and I knew they could. A Harvard study says belief from a key person ups someone's success odds by 50%. Simon's living proof. Have you ever believed in someone so hard they broke their own limits? Real example. Again, for Robson and Jerome, Simon wouldn't quit. Robson said no, even sent legal warnings to back off. Simon kept at it, called his family, friends, offered $50,000 each to try. If you hate it, keep the cash, he said. They recorded, heard it, and Robson grinned. You jerk, you knew it'd work. It did. UK's top sellers for 2 years. Simon inspired by not giving up on them, they soared. Can you push someone that far? Science says inspiration spreads. A Journal of Positive Psychology study shows when you lift one person, they're 70% more likely to lift others. A ripple effect. Simon does it daily. Rejected for an autograph at 6, he vowed never to turn anyone down, and he doesn't. I always say yes, he said, even mid-meal. He inspires with kindness. From mailroom staff to superstars, they feel it. Can you spark that chain? Personal story. I saw a coworker struggling, could have ignored it, but spent 10 minutes cheering her on. You've got this, I said. A week later, she crushed her project and thanked me. I felt like Simon for a moment. Who's your coworker needing a boost? Inspiration can be quiet but mighty. Simon tells Eric, do what you love and do it well. He doesn't force him to copy. He wants Eric to find his path. I want him excited Sunday nights for Monday, he said. That's living. A Yale study says kids with parents inspiring through values like passion grow up 40% more confident. Simon's not just passing it to Eric, he's giving it to a generation with his 2025 boy band. They don't need a head start, he said. Just a chance. Take action now. Pick one person you want to inspire. Friend, co-worker, family, a kid. Write their name. Do one small thing today to lift them. Text, I believe in you, share an idea, listen for 5 minutes. Ask, can I do this more? Write how it felt. That's the power of inspiring. Conclusion, take action today. Your life's waiting. Take a second and look around. Your life right now, the job you do, the people you love, the dreams you hold, it's all built from choices you've made. But here's the best part. It doesn't end here. Simon Cowell, a kid who hated school, with no degree, no cash, showed us you don't wait for miracles. You make them. From sorting mail at EMI to rocking stages worldwide, from going broke at 30 to launching One Direction, he didn't just live, he lived big, real, and left a mark. You don't have to be him, but you can borrow from him. Your life's waiting for you to act starting today. Across these 10 parts, we've walked Simon's path, finding your deepest drive, learning from flops, believing when no one else does, taking small steps, waiting patiently, healing from loss, caring for your soul, balancing life, building a legacy, and inspiring others. Each part's a nudge to live fuller, not tomorrow, not when you're ready, but now. He didn't start high. He had grit, passion, and kindness. You've got that too, don't you? So what's holding you back? Start small. Write down what fires you up. Dig a lesson out of a past failure. Trust your wildest idea. Do one little thing today. Stick with your dream. Heal an old hurt. Listen to your soul. Slow down. Shape how you'll be remembered. And lift someone up. Simon went from zero to hero. You can too. I still love what I do, he said in 2025, and I want you to love it too. Life's not something you endure, it's something you craft. Now's your moment. Don't let this just be words. Make it your first move. What'll you do today to live true to you? I want to hear your story, because you deserve to be heard, seen, and to shine. Call to action. If this lit a spark in you, hit like to spread the vibe. Subscribe so you don't miss the next lessons. We're just getting started, and drop a comment below. What's my small step today? I read everyone and I'm dying to know where you'll begin. Let's turn dreams into reality, right now.